welcome to the new podcast with myself, Darragh Byrne. So as we all know, society tells us that we need loads of money, a big house, fancy cars and a prestigious job title in order to be successful. So a lot of people strive for this material success only to feel empty when attained, leading to them feeling lost, trapped, and they start to self-sabotage with massive identity crisis and the biggest mental health problems that we have in the world. It's a big massive trap that has been deliberately set in society to have system that essentially us as humans to have us like donkeys chasing the carrot. Once we do get the job, we start paying taxes, start a family, get a mortgage and work the rest of our adult lives. Only then at the age of 70 after retirement we get to live happily ever after. The Successful Irishman podcast is to hear stories from people who are successful from all walks of life and to understand how they define success. Ultimately, in my opinion, success is what we make it mean for us. Welcome to the new podcast with myself, Darragh Byrne. Today, I am just going to bring on a journey on what the podcast is about, who I'm going to be speaking to along the way, and the reason I've set up a new one. So yeah, please tune in. So the name of the podcast is the Successful Irishman podcast, where we know success isn't only about money and material riches. It's about personal freedom, owning your time, and leaving your trauma, triggers, and limiting beliefs behind. I have evolved so much since the waves of change with first podcast. There are a lot of similarities between the two, but this is completely different. And I'm super excited. Absolutely super excited. This has a different backbone to it and a different foundation and reason. So as we all know, society tells us that we need loads of money, a big house, fancy cars, and a prestigious job title in order to be successful. So a lot of people strive for this material success only to feel empty when attained, leading to them feeling lost, trapped, and they start to self-sabotage because they, according to society, should be happy with all of this material success they have in life. So they start to believe there's something wrong with them, hide from the world through wearing masks, abusing alcohol and using drugs. And a lot of other people never reach that level of material success and they judge themselves as failures because they don't have what the neighbour has, or they struggle to keep up with the Joneses by buying the clothes, the watches, the cars to make themselves look rich on the outside, but leaving themselves feeling empty on the inside, leading again to substance abuse, massive identity crisis, and the biggest mental health problems that we have in the world, where a lot of us are chasing living up to this level of material success, but because we don't have it really internally, we fear if we are not that person or somebody finds, we fear the judgment from others during that process. And in my opinion, it's all a big bollocks. It's a big massive trap that has been deliberately set in society to have system that essentially us as humans to have us like donkeys chasing the carrot. That's the analogy I would use. So we're constantly chasing this success where we're on that hamster wheel or the rat race for it's more commonly known of life. We go to school as children. We then go to college. Then we go get a degree or a qualification in something that our family believes is best for us. Then we get the job. In a lot of cases, people end up hating that job or that qualification or that college degree and they drop out, leading to us believing that we are inferior or that we're failures and all the rest of it. But once we do get the job, we start paying taxes, start a family, get a mortgage, and work the rest of our adult lives. Only then, at the age of 70, after retirement, we get to live happily ever after. So that is based on the system that society, the elites, or whoever you want to say, built it, has been built for us to live inside of. The Successful Irishman podcast is to hear stories from people who are successful from all walks of life and to understand how they define success, because ultimately it is whatever we decide it to be for ourselves. So on the podcast, we're going to be hearing from people who have transitioned careers, have been through breakdown of marriage, of relationship, of businesses, and basically choosing the life that they have chosen today, and to hear what life is like for them during that process. Because ultimately, in my opinion, success is what we make it mean for us. So you could already be living your successful life and you're miserable because you're judging yourself based on the rules that society has set to measure your success. And to give this an analogy that I've heard many times, it's a fish's inability to climb a tree will judge itself based on that intelligence. A monkey, however, can climb the tree. It's clearly intelligent. So if we judge ourselves based on what somebody else perceives successful to be, we will live our lives believing that we are a failure across the board. So I'll have conversations with people in the hope that inspires listeners to take whatever wisdom that resonates for them from their stories to create a successful life of their own. Because we're the authors of our stories. We literally get to write the chapters and definitions of what our own successes are as we see fit. So that's the structure, the system, the reason for the new podcast. And now it's time for a little bit about me and my life story. So I'm from the flats in inner city Dublin. I grew up in York Street to a single mother and didn't have a lot in life growing up. My mother works 3 to 4 jobs to make ends meet. And yeah, times are tough. My mother had her own traumatic events and experiences to escape from. So she used alcohol and substance abuses of her own to escape and numb the pain of that reality. And for me, I was left fending for myself for a lot of my younger years and younger part of my life. And I had both its pros and cons. When you feel great, you have this huge level of freedom. And the other side of that is you have relatively little to no guidance, adult guidance. Now, back when I was growing up, the community was incredible because communities all sort of rallied together and there was no door that was closed. Everybody had an open door policy. Like an unwritten rule in the flats where you were stuck for something in one flat or apartment, whatever, or in your home, you just go into somebody else's home and everybody looked after each other. And it's a part of life that I will cherish forever. It's a bit sad to see that it's not so common these days. A lot of closed doors, stuff like that. So I grew up in York Street, and the flats that are right next to Grassland Street, right next to Stephen's Green, right next to Temple Bar, right next to Harcourt Street, right next to Wexford Street, right next to Georgia Street, you know, the unofficial red light capital of Ireland. And I was smack bang in the middle of all of those things, all of those clubs and pubs and the red light districts, if you will. And for me, growing up to a single parent, if my mother wasn't in any of the local pubs, I was left locked out of my own family home. And as a kid in the heart of Dublin, at the age of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you know, being alone in the flats late at night, some cases 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, unsure who's going to come up the stairs next, a neighbour, my mother, or a stranger. It was quite daunting, and it was very frightening and scary for a kid of my age, with everybody flooding out of pubs and clubs and bars and all just having a good time and just being rowdy and celebrating and shouting. And obviously there's a lot of fights and there's a lot of trouble along the way. So as a kid, it was quite scary and led me to having some abandonment issues with myself. And why am I always being left to last? Why am I, why does nobody want me, essentially? Didn't have a father for the huge part of my life. I'm 21 years of age, I believe, when I first heard about my father. So yeah, that's another story that we'll get to along the way. So for me, growing up like that, I had to learn, I had to be street smart really fast. 2 brothers who they were also absent, put it that way. They weren't very stable people in my life. They came and went similar to how else my life was progressing. So I needed to grow up really fast. The inner city in a working class area of Dublin We had a lot of drugs, a lot of robbed cars, robbed motorbikes, robbing shops. We had a lot of people who, junkies and people who are down and out who, fell on hard times themselves in their lives. So, by the age of 10, seen more violence, heartache, heartbreak, trauma, things that a kid of that age or an adult would ever see in their whole lifetimes. So again, I'm extremely grateful for where I came from, the childhood I was gifted, because without a single piece of that puzzle, I wouldn't be making this podcast right now or doing the work in the world that I do today. So yeah, for me, coming up in an area like that, it's only natural that I progress into that lifestyle and start robbing cars, go robbing shops, like not as in holding up shops, but going down robbing hogs from a loud shop. It's magic in Dublin. Yeah, well, in Grafton Street, on Stephen's Green, marbles and kites and stuff that we could just come back to the flats and play with. Hit the Dunn stores, you used to get all these vouchers where you can get a free drink. And I can't remember, I think it was the Cafe. I can't remember the cafe. The Coilmore Cafe, I think it was. But we used to get these vouchers and you can get a free drink and a free meal. So yeah, that was what we used to do for fun. Obviously, but then we go back to the flats, play pogs, play marbles on the shores and play nearest to the wall. They used to get very, very heated with myself and my mates, and there was any sort of competition involved. I was like life and death. And then you add money into the mix, so we used to play for 20 pence, 50 pence, pounds, and yeah, the same level of intensity with the competition we used to bring across the board, where there was money involved and not football. So yeah, naturally you progress to robbing motorbikes and getting chased by the police and knacker drinking, just drinking around the flats for people who don't know. And yeah, just being a young know-it-all, but absolutely no fuck all. Think you have it all figured out, Mother was home most of the time. She was home most of the time, but when she worked for 3 to 4 jobs to make ends meet, look after me and my other brothers along the way, there's obviously a huge level of absence. One, she done for love to support us, and then two, with the pub to support herself, to heal and numb the pain that she was feeling based on her traumatic childhood. That one day I'll have her on for an interview if she is up for that, and we can hear her whole life story, because she is my biggest inspiration. I love her with all of my heart. Without all the, the lessons, the blessings, the painful lessons and teachings along the way, there's no way I would be here. So many funny stories. There's absolutely so many funny stories. But, credit union, getting loans, credit cards, running up bills and having her in my ear telling me that you need to pay this, you need to pay. There's no option but to have financial literacy drilled into my brain. So again, thank you, Geraldine, for those who don't know. You're the apple of my eye. I love it dearly. Thank you for helping me to get to where I am in life. It doesn't go unnoticed, and it's something that I will never ever forget. So for me, smoking hash, robbing cars, robbing bikes, just joyriding, being a little hoodlum around the flats. Eventually I got myself kicked out of school at the age of 15, immediately after my cert. The principal sort of told me, don't come back at the end of my junior cert. And me, young and dumb, young, know it all, believed he knew it all, and obviously naive, stupid along the way. I thought the principal was like, he's only messing type of thing. And I showed up the next year for school, and he wasn't messing. He had expelled me from school, and I'd shown up with all of the gear, the new clothes, the bags, and the books and everything else. And yeah, I had to go home with my tail between my leg. I was expelled from school, 15 years of age, and my mother was heartbroken. I was terrified going home to tell her. My mother was heartbroken, and for the first few weeks, I after once we got through that, my mother got mad at me, and for the first few weeks, so I thought I was on holiday mode. It was like everything was rosy. And one morning, my mother, she was getting up for work at 6:30 in the morning, and walking past my bedroom with me fast asleep, getting up out of bed at 8, 9 o'clock and sort of moseying around the flats, doing what I wanted. Yeah, my mother dragged me out of bed. Well, she didn't drag me, she dragged my duvet off of me and basically said, if I'm going to be going to work at this hour in the morning, there's absolutely no way that you're going to be lying in bed for until whatever hour and moseying around and doing what you want from one end of the day to the next. So give me your keys. The duvet is gone. I'm out of this house in half an hour, so you have a half an hour to get yourself ready. Get out and get yourself a job. So some tough love at the age of 15. Again, it stood to me well. I had to go down to Darragh Street to, apply for apprenticeships. I wanted to be a carpenter. After a few short weeks, a family friend got me an apprenticeship as a plumber that still to this day, even though I don't do it anymore, I love. Gave me some of the biggest gifts, an incredible skill set that I get to carry with me. Still today, I can't walk into a bathroom, go to the toilet or anywhere without looking at the work and sort of eyeing up what I would have done differently. So it's funny. It's absolutely funny. But as 15, at the age of 15, going on to construction sites, driving up to the Dublin mountains, bike, tax, 150, no insurance, no license. To start out my apprenticeship, I picked up the license along the way, never got insurance on that bike, don't tell the police. But yeah, that was part of my introduction to work, going to a relationship, which took me out of the flats, which was a great part of my life because it took me out of the flats, took that wildness, some of the wildness out of my growth, I suppose, because I didn't go on to some of the harder drugs as many of my friends did and go to nightclubs and raves, and when I was just still only smoking hash, and I was a lot more developed when I started dabbling with those types of things. But yeah, going through my apprenticeship, being kicked out of school at such a young age ended up standing to me then, because all of my friends were coming out of school at 18, and I was almost qualified as a plumber at that stage, and effectively I had trade to fall back on that, was drilled into you from the age of, 5, 6. So yeah, that was epic. And for me, I was a young and dumb kid where I knew everything. My mother, where are you going? Nowhere. Who are you going out with? Nobody. How long will you be? When will you be back? Nothing. No, literally one sentence or one word answers. And then as a father now, I genuinely don't know how my mother and even parents of children around the flats put up with us, because it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I can't imagine what it's going to be like for me when my kids get to that age. So, I was young and dumb, as I said. Used to cheat on girlfriends, thought I knew everything. Used to argue with everybody. I used to have a lot of fights up and along those streets. As I got older, never ever started a fight with anybody. We always ended up in fights with people. The other perception of that was, people would see in tracksuits and they'd have a few pints of drinks on them, and they'd throw abuse and we'd throw abuse, and all of a sudden there's fighting going on. And even as a young kid at the age of 14, even younger, because we wore tracksuits, that was our attire in the inner city of Dublin. Still love tracksuits. But yeah, as you're walking down the road, you're hearing people that are stuck in traffic, locking their doors, locking their windows, rolling their windows up, and you see people and they cross the other side of the street when they see you and they perceive you as a certain way. That does something to you as a young kid, 2 or 3 times. It's like, really, and then, an internal joke that you sort of laugh, and in my opinion, you don't need to feel that. And I understand why they felt that intimidation coming in around the streets, because a lot of people got robbed around where I grew up. I've seen a lot of robberies, people coming out Grafton Street having their shoppings or their handbags by people who are addicted to drugs. God loves them and God loves the people who got robbed in those circumstances. So, to be tarred with that, again, of no fault of anybody's, mine or people who believed that I was about to rob them, definitely leaves an imprint on your soul and leaves an imprint on your heart, where we, from the inner city, judge people who are from posher areas like Foxrock and Dalkey and all the rest of it, like, oh, they were born in the silver spoon. They don't know what it's like to grow up, come from an area where we grew up. And, now in my line of work, I get to see that people in those areas, they also have huge, massive traumatic events. They have somewhat of this similar level of existence with different identities. So trying to be like the father, trying to be like the mother, not excelling at this level of what the expectation has been set out from them or for them from the family, trying to live up to this identity that they can't. And it turns out in those areas there is a high percentage of suicides also because of people not meeting what they believe the requirement is to live in areas like that. So life it's been a massive journey. So we had a chip on our shoulders for people well-to-do areas, and they had a chip on their shoulders and concerned themselves with how we were, sort of looked down on us whenever they were in our areas. And we look down on them, as ironic and crazy as that is. I look down on people like that myself. So yeah, it's interesting how life has come full circle now in what I do for a living. I help people from any walk of life, and a lot of well-to-do people and doctors and police and firemen and women and even counsellors. I support them with my skill sets for them to heal from the traumas and whatever they've been through in their lives. But again, that's further down the line part of my story. At 21, I moved to Australia. At 21, actually, I heard about my father for the first time. Who I believed to be my father was never my father. And eventually I was told that he wasn't my father. It was like this innate trigger of all instances that happened throughout my life flooded back, like the memory, like they say, DMT in the body, or in the mind, in the pineal gland, the third eye. Your whole life flashes before your eyes before you pass. Well, I got that sensation at the age of 20 when my whole life flashed before my eyes, that a lot of things that happened previously in my life that I innately knew were not correct, but I didn't know what I didn't know why they were incorrect, and that was mainly around my father, or believing my brother's father was my father. So a lot of things made sense. It was like, well, yeah, as a young kid, there's also that big, huge identity. If this was such a big lie to live with, who the fuck am I? And even all of my life up to this point, is it even real? All of this type stuff. Now again, I don't hold any ill will or begrudges to my mother or my father, who I do know today and have a great relationship with. Both of them worked with the tools they had and the skill sets they had, and made choices that they believed would best support me in my childhood. So again, there's no ill will, but that's part of my story. So yeah, I moved out of home, and after maybe a couple of years I moved to Australia, where I started to dabble in everything. Party. Well, not only Australia. I used to party. I used to go out in what I believed to be having a good time, but in reality I was running away from the anxiousness, the fear of not fitting in. Always making sure I bought people a drink, and because I was a massive people pleaser, I didn't want to be left behind. I didn't want to feel abandoned by my own mates, and that was a trauma that I felt from my childhood, indirectly and directly. Now, as I understand in my line of work, that things like that stay with you forever until you face off with them and heal them. And unbeknownst to me, I was the life and soul of every party, and I'd have all sorts of everything, all the goodies that we could have party on for days. And yeah, that was a huge part of my life then. I had some incredible times, some incredible nights, some incredible parties, some incredible festivals. And yeah, again, I wouldn't change any of it. Over to Australia from the age of 21, I partied like an absolute rock star in the sun, 24-hour bottle shops, like having the time of it. Same again, the partying got even. I mean, I don't think it could have been even more, but it was just as big as what it was when I was in Dublin. Yeah, life was good. I was losing every job that I signed up to. Missed most Mondays. Again, not proud of any of this stuff, but it's all part of my journey. Yeah, it was hectic. It was absolutely hectic. It was incredible. A few years of my life, and of course, when you're running away from yourself so much and you're going into from one session to the next, one party to the next, and one job to the next, and to the next, there's really a level of emptiness that is inside that you're running away from, that you think is going to be at the end of the next bag or the next bottle or the next party or the next festival or the next girlfriend, but it's not. It's you and you. And eventually I had a girl I was going out with that was going to be leaving Australia, not by her own wishes. And that was incredibly daunting and devastating for me because I was really in love with her. And she was at home. She was having a great time with her family. And then my own family, where, you know, I went on a massive drug-fueled bender for 7 days over Christmas and partied. Not all the way through, but practically 3 days one side of Christmas or 4 days the other side of Christmas, all the way through, with a couple of days break in between, but obviously hungover. My girlfriend at the time was talking to my mother, I was talking to everybody, and we're having a good time that I was having. When I was partying, I was having a great time. But in between the parties, and like naturally the come down of that partying, I was terrible, feeling sad. I was feeling lost, I was feeling confused, and I got into a massive fight over that Christmas, and like a physical fight in a nightclub. It's not who I am and what I like. Got no interest in anything like that, and whenever anything like that happens, it makes me feel down. I was speaking to my mother, speaking to my partner at the time. After hanging up the phone with my mother, I was telling everybody that I was great too, and I felt like everywhere I went, everybody was depressed and, you know, complaining about the heat. Let's go to the beach. I can't go to the beach because it's too hot. Let's go for a run. Oh, it's too hot. Let's go to the cinema. I don't have money. And, you know, I just felt trapped. And eventually it was just sapping the life out of me. Even me, when I was telling my mother and all my family members that I was feeling good and everything was great and fucking the weather is great. I'm in Melbourne. I'm living the dream. I knew I was lying. And each time it was killing a little more of my soul, telling my family members that I was great and everything was great. And the last phone that I had with my mother, she's like, oh yeah, everything's great, you know, the kids are over, everything is all the rest of it. And I hung up the phone and knew I'd lied through my teeth. Everything is great here, but I wasn't. For me, I was feeling lost, feeling lonely, and I was feeling scared. And at that moment, this thought flashed through my mind: they wouldn't even miss you if you were gone. And I'd never, ever been depressed. You know, I was bulletproof, if you will, from hangovers and come downs. I always had a massive positive outlook on life, and I sort of seen things as, you know, you're doing what you wanted to do at that time, so there's no point beating yourself up about it now, because you can't change it. And in this moment, a massive domino went off. Everything started to crumble. And it's like, what do you mean? You were gone. And then the fear and the worry and then obviously suicide crossed my mind. I was petrified. So I got into a dark spiral that got worse, because in between this dark spiral, I was still meeting people, making phone calls, calling home, but I was afraid to be vulnerable and tell the truth and be open and honest about how I was feeling, until maybe 10 days, 2 weeks passed and barely able to sleep. Party was always in my house, so the party, my gaff was wrecked. Yeah, I just felt isolated, alone, surrounded by people, but empty inside and feeling lonely. And eventually I reached out to a buddy of mine, Rob. He lived in Canada at the time. He lives in Toronto. And Robbie O'Hare, big love to you. Thank you. That was a pivotal moment in my life. So anybody that knows him, give him love next time you see him, because he's a legend. And it's funny and ironic, because a couple of years before that, I met Rob in Koh Samui. Randomly, the universe, myself and Robert's family friends, 40 odd years at this stage. And I met Robert in college in Boston, Ballyfermot, when I was doing my plumbing apprenticeship. We were in the same class. So like, I know, I've got friends from town and this and that. I was like, no way. I was like, that's my mother. He's like, what? Yeah, that's how we discovered and met each other and found out about each other after weeks in school together, in college together. And he told me about the secret. He told me he was going to be in the Koh Samui in Thailand that he was gonna be a millionaire by the age of 30. And I was like, what? And he was telling me, do you not know? He was telling me about it. Do you not know about the law of attraction? Do you not know about all of these philosophers from back in the day? And I'm like, mate, you stone fucking get out of here. So for the rest of that holiday that we were on, I just gave him abuse. It was like, oh, here's the millionaire. And we had great crack around all the clubs and the pubs around Koh Samui. And lo and behold, we went on our merry way. We went traveling through Laos. We went to Vang Vienne, tubing in the jungle, all around shooting in Thailand. And, you know, it was an epic journey. But off I went back to Australia. And again, still living the life too. Fast forward 2 years. Almost to the day. It was Christmas time when I was ringing up Rob to find out what was the name of that book. Rob was sort of one of the first people I opened up to and told how it was. And then when I told other people, they didn't really believe or understand the magnitude or the gravity of the situation I found myself in. Speaking about your mental health wasn't very open back then. Or to give this context, this was in 2010, so 14 years ago from today. I didn't know what to do. I think I went to a counsellor once and it just didn't feel right for me. And then even chatting to a couple of people, even my partner at the time, nobody seemed to understand how severe the situation was. And it was just like, you know, we sort of laughed and joked about it. But when they called Rob, it was sheer desperation. What was the name of that book you told me about 2 years ago? And I gave you dogs abuse about, and we had a bit of a laugh on the phone. But I went and got that. Found it took me a while to find it. They didn't have any of the libraries. They didn't have it in any of the shops. To scurry around Melbourne before I actually got my hand copy. So again, thank you, Rob, for that. But when I got that book, man, it was like each page brought me back to life more and more, because I started to see myself in the books or in the pages, and actions that I have went through and actions that I had taken and results that I had gotten in my life in terms of traveling the world, in terms of going to Las Vegas as I think I was a 19-year-old with the pubs and the clubs over there, and always having this wanderlust innately in me. If somebody told me not to do something, I wanted to experience it for myself, to understand if it's good, if it's bad, if I like it, if I don't like it. Same with people. Don't be near those people, or don't go over the north side because they'll all bash you because you're from the south side, or, you know, so on. Don't go and sit with posh people. It's like, nah. I always had this innate drive to go and hang out with people and learn for myself, learn through experiential learning, learn through experiencing, as opposed to somebody else telling me what to do and not to do it or when to do it. So for me, it reminded me of who I was at like literally every page. I read that. It was the first book I ever read, and it was like being born all over again. And since that time in 2010, it led me down this personal development journey, and progressed just through different books and documentaries and things along the way. And was still a bit of a party animal. And fast forward to 2015, where I found this documentary. It's called The Abundance Factor. The Abundance Factor. You'll find it on YouTube, but what's the lead every couple of years, and it's re-uploaded from somebody else. But that's where I found my now mentor, Alexi Panos, and through her I found my also now mentor, her husband, Preston Small. So that was in 2015, and I watched this documentary, and it was the same. It was like learning about myself again on a deeper level, and it was another massive pivotal moment in my life. And I told anybody who would listen to me about this podcast, this documentary, I'll save you the intro to it. You want to go and see it, look it up yourself. But I recommended this documentary to absolutely anybody who would listen to me. And it was basically about following your own heart. And what does abundance, following your own dreams, following your own heart, doing what's right for you, and what does abundance mean to you, which is very similar to what I'm doing with this podcast today, the successful Irishman. we get to define our lives. But again, I will come into all of that at the end. Fast forward 6 to 8 months, I went to Burning Man and I had no idea, my wife at the time, well, a girl at the time, but I had no idea my wife today. I met Saoirse in Burning Man. I didn't know her. She was there for her friend's wedding. I was there with other friends, and it was crazy. I was on Alcatraz. I got this just landed. I was on Alcatraz Island with the guy who was now who is my friend, Alan McCarthy, who was the celebrant for myself and Saoirse's wedding, like 8 years later. That is absolutely hilarious. So we were on Alcatraz just going around, and we asked this guy to take a photograph of us. Excuse me, just having some water. And he said, yeah. And we were like, sweet. But he took his photograph, got his photograph, and then turned around and walked off, like completely blankless. And the two of us started laughing our heads off. And this girl, who turned out to be Irish, stopped over saying, look, I'll take a photograph for you. We got chatting to her, and we all shared a laugh because she seen what had happened, and we were still giggling to ourselves. So cue the photo, and later on, we just said hello. Later on that night, we bumped into her again in the place called the Napper Tandy in San Francisco. It's where everybody from Celtic Chaos meet up before they go into Burning Man. And she was like, oh, I said, how are you? And Kerry, her name is, how are you, Kerry? And she was like, oh, you again, fucking hilarious. I'm just here. My brother's getting married in Burning Man and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, gets into Burning Man. It turns out her brother was somebody I knew from Melbourne. Saoirse was there with them for the wedding, and because he was getting married in Burning Man, and all of our friends, we all shared the same friends, so we all ended up at that wedding at Burning Man. And I met Saoirse, and we never hit it off. We knew I fancied her, but I wasn't chasing her, and I didn't want to chase her because I wasn't after sex. So it was a bit more than that for me. For sure, I was obviously wiped 2 days deep into a session, a festival. Couldn't properly string words and sentences together, especially for somebody that I really fancied, as opposed to wanted to chase for the ride. So it's a funny story, actually. Well, I decided to feel her arse for whatever reason, just to test the waters, if you will, because my words weren't doing me too good. But another friend, David, went absolutely ballistic. He was more her friend than he was my friend at the time. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing? Don't you put your hands on her again. She's my sister, you know, it's all family, friends of family, friends of family. She's my sister, don't fucking put your hands on her again type of thing, you know. So I was like, sorry. We all said sorry, hugged and kissed her and made up and carried on by our partying. But funny story, Alan, who I went to Burning Man with, and David, who went mad in that process. Alan married us. He was the celebrant for the wedding, and David was one of my groomsmen for the wedding. So forward a few months, I bumped into Saoirse again at another festival in Melbourne. And yeah, this time David wasn't there. So I had the chance to get her in a headlock. Yeah, time stood still. It was everything I'd imagined. Yeah, we hit it off, and within 2 or 3 weeks, I was flying up and down from Melbourne to Sydney to spend the weekend with her and all of our friends, her friends, and my new friends. And yeah, I'd moved to Sydney, gave up everything I owned in Melbourne. If it didn't fit in my car, or I couldn't carry it or send it, I gave it away. So I gave away everything I owned that was bulky and drove up to Sydney to be with Saoirse and be with my new life. And that was always me. I always took chances. Another funny story, Thomas and Emma, the Devids, I was driving out over the Balti Bridge, and I was chatting to them. They had me on loudspeakers, like, what's happening? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, you're not going to believe it. And he's like, what? I'm on my way to Sydney. And he's like, and I'm like, look, I turned the camera on. I turned the FaceTime on, and he could see, like, the bed. You know, I took the queen size bed apart. You could see it through the middle, coming up through the middle of my car. You could see that the 3 drawers that you have, your bedside lockers. You could see all the, whatever that could fit in the car, and all the clothes and everything else sort of stuffed in. It was an old Honda Accord. And the two of them were falling around laughing, saying, you would fall in love with a packet of Crips. They were dumbfounded and laughing their heads. So that's another funny story. So yeah, off I went. I think it was 11-hour trip to get from Melbourne to Sydney, and yeah, moved to Sydney, and again there was a lot of synchronicities. A place to live on the way there, and a friend advertised on Facebook. Saoirse lived in Waverley in 7 Church Street, and on the road there, I didn't have anywhere to live, and I didn't want to move in with Saoirse. And on the road there, this girl posted that she was looking for a roommate, and she was a friend of a friend, and he rang me and says, "Look, here's a number. Go to, get the address off her when you get here." I was about 3 or 4 hours away from Sydney at this stage, and when I arrived into Sydney, it was 57 Church Street also, but in a different suburb in Randwick. And the stars, a lot of things were happening like that. But the stars were aligned, and there was a lot of synchronicities that were guiding me and telling me that I was on the right track. That we were on the right track. But fast forward the honeymoon period and all the good stuff, and I started to feel left out. So my childhood trauma of abandonment and feeling abandonment, what I didn't realise was still living in me as an adult, was being triggered by certain situations when Saoirse was deciding to have a drink with our friends downstairs in our own house that she lived in before she ever knew me, with the friends that she lived with before she ever knew me, and all girls as well, women. I'd go to bed tired, and obviously I'd get up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. to go into construction. She'd have to get up till 8 a.m. to go get ready and go into an office in the city. So we're living on somewhat different time frames, and I would be tired. Everything would be great. There'd be only the girls down there. She's having a glass of wine. We'd be out there having dinner. And I'm going to bed. And I'm like, good night, everyone, good luck. And going to bed. But as soon as I hit the bed, my body just shook with anxiousness, the nerves in my system, and it was uncontrollable and also shocking, because it's not anxiety or stress or depression or anything like that. Never really things that I lived with or ever had or never worried about during my life. I never really worried about a lot of things. So this anxiousness, these triggers in my system used to put me into not schizophrenia, but definitely deep paranoia, where I couldn't sleep. I'd flip over like an uncooked sausage. Constantly throwing my eye over the balcony to see what Saoirse is up to see what the girls are up to downstairs. And yeah, to the point of exhaustion, every night I wanted to go to sleep. And then it started to drive this resentment with me and her, because I used to bring up this, why are you leaving me to last? Why are you having the drinks with the girls, or why are you staying in work to have drinks with people after work? And why are you, if there's something on, which was true for Saoirse, she would go to the opening of an envelope. But if there's something on, do you want to come to that? And then if I don't want to come to that, if I don't want to fit into your life or lifestyle, then it's like, all right, well, I'll see you later type of thing. And for me, that was very hurtful. But again, it was based on my life, my perception of what reality should be, and based off of triggers and traumas that I'd experienced in my childhood. Like my mother, for instance, going to any of the local, if she wasn't in any of the local pubs, then I was sort of left to fend for myself around the flats until she came home, or a neighbour came home and looked after me. And for me, I had no idea that was a trauma that was stored in my system, and that was getting re-triggered every time Saoirse decided to have a drink, hang around with her friends before she would come back to me. And yeah, it drove a lot of paranoia, a lot of fear, a lot of worry, a lot of sadness, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt for myself. And I didn't understand what the driving force was behind that. One day I checked her phone when she was asleep, and every fucking single ounce of myself in my body, like energy, my mind, like just told me that was the wrong thing to do. You do not do this. Don't need to check her phone. And I did. And even as I was doing it, I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. It was like I was in autopilot. And I was, of course, you want to find something. I think you believe you found something, but reality, we all have friends and people that we knew before I ever turned up again. And then the next day, I felt absolutely fucking terrible. I felt really guilty. I knew it was the wrong thing to do. And I told Saoirse out straight. I was like, oh, I checked the phone. And not even to that degree. Like, who's this? Who's that? And again, all innocent stuff. It was me with egg on my face with this fucking innate drive or trigger that was triggering me to act out in like this. So she basically told me, look, if I love you heart, but if you're going to be carrying on with this, you're going to drive me away from me. I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I'm too far gone or too far in life to be going back to like not childhood, but child's play. So yeah, I knew deep down that I need to sort this or I'm going to lose the love of my life. You don't fucking up sticks from one city to the next on a whim without believing and understanding that, you know, these two souls were meant to meet and you're my twin flame or my soulmate or whatever everyone else wants to frame as. But yeah, I went to a spiritual healer for the very first time, and that was profound. What I went in with all of this stuff about Serge fucking doing all of these things, and it was all her fault, and all of this energy and all of that. And you know, we immediately went into inner child work, visualization, past, meditation, connecting the past to the present. And there was a moment when I remember that I felt abandoned, and but it all made so much sense. I wasn't physically abandoned, but an episode, you know, my mother was still in the house, but an episode then at that age created this fear of nobody coming back from me that was now being relived. And that was the first open door and was now being relived in my adult life. It made a lot of sense. But that was only the first open door of connecting my past and my present. And I was like, wow, there was a lot of tears, there was a lot of crying, there was a lot of expression. And yeah, I got home, we had a big chat with Serge. You know, I was always willing to lean in to do whatever work that needs to be done to help to salvage not just our relationship, but for me to sort out the problems that were mine, not hers. Fast forward another couple of months, I was at a property investment seminar in Melbourne that I flew down for with a buddy of mine. And enough coming back to that documentary that I told absolutely everybody about, the abundance factor. One of the women that I resonated with most in that and her message the most was Alexi Panos. Again, she's still my mentor today. Her and her husband were doing a tour of Australia with their signature program, the Bridge Experience, the Bridge Method. And now today I am doing the apprenticeship to learn the facilitation training required so I can deliver the exact same workshop that blew the stockings off me, my childhood trauma, and literally led me on this path today. So Mark showed me, he's like, oh, look at this thing. Look at, I don't know, like the seminar was great for the property investment. I was upskilling. It was something that I was really passionate about, something that I wanted to aim towards, property investment. And within 5 minutes of Mark showing me this, I was like, I have to go to this other workshop. He said, instead of leaving what we'd already paid money for and like slowing down for, I finished off that property investment seminar, took all the notes and learned all the stuff, and I immediately bought to go to the other seminar that was the next weekend, and I was on it with Sydney. The Bridge Experience, not to give away too much of it, because it's part of the reason it creates so many profound results, is the surprises that come along the way. But long story short, there's an exercise in there, and I stood up in front of around 70 or 80 people, and people were sharing their stories, the deepest, darkest. Some women spoke about being raped, others about being molested, and men spoke about attempting suicide, also being molested, and things, you know, huge traumatic events in their lives. And in my mind, I was like, I don't really have any of that type of stuff. Like, I'm grand, I'm fine. I had that one thing back then, but I wasn't really showing up hugely in my body until it was close to my turn to stand up and speak. And I remembered all of those times as a kid in the flats, in the rain, in the cold, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm scared little boy, knowing who's coming up next, my mother, a neighbour, or a stranger. And that was the fear that I still carried to that day of being abandoned, because that's what was born in my system. Feeling like I was left to last. I cried. I couldn't even speak. It was what I was feeling. The anxiety, the nervousness, the trigger, the trauma in my jaw was locked. I couldn't even speak. So everything I spoke about when I tried to go to sleep and search was only downstairs and was all coming to life again in my body. My legs was twitching, my hands were sweating. I was looking on the floor. I couldn't hold eye contact. I was crying so hard that I could barely breathe. I was crying so hard that I couldn't speak, let alone breathe. Nothing was. I was purging so many years of trauma that I didn't even know that I carried. And because I'd carried it into my adult life, I had compounded more on top. I was like a dagger that was stuck in my heart that I was trying to avoid having to get any painful. So I appeased everybody else along the way because I didn't want this dagger to either be pulled out or twisted in any way, shape or form. If I was left out or someone was feeling more pain, always make it about me. Why do they not want me around? Why are they leaving me to last? Why are they, you name it? But yeah, I broke down and had this massive, absolute, incredible purge. It was the most profound and beautiful, life-changing moment. It was a massive pivot in my life. I cried so much that I felt like I was on the clouds, man. Afterwards, I felt like I purged many lifetimes and generations of traumas from my system. And that was the first time that I understood somatics, because Preston and Alexi explained in that moment that the body never forgets and somatic energy stays stored, trapped in our system until we face off or relive the experience that put it there. Or do the work required, because there's many modalities you can use to get this somatic energy out of your system. But for me, it was life-changing. After that weekend, all of the people that spoke about horrific childhood trauma, like absolute worst of the worst. And even when we went from not being able to communicate with each other at the start of the weekend to now high-fiving and dancing and having the crack with each other at the end of the weekend. So I knew, like, why are my friends committing suicide? Why are family members committing suicide? Why are our people at home hiding how they're feeling? Why are they afraid to share and be vulnerable, tell their true story? If they're feeling stressed financially, if they're in work or in a dead-end relationship, instead of just whinging about it and going to the pub and stuffing it down and passing that trauma on to their kids and so on and so forth. Why aren't we being open and vulnerable and letting these things go? So for me, I amazingly knew I'm gonna, nobody does this type of stuff in my neighbourhood. I need to, who's gonna bring this to my neighbourhood, to the working class areas of Dublin? And I knew I needed to, there's nobody there. I knew that I wouldn't resonate with anybody that would come in a suit. I knew that if anybody was going to hear it from those areas, they would need to hear it from us. That was my decision to quit plumbing, quit construction. It still took me 3 years. That was what opened the door. That was just one pivot. It took me 3 years to build up the courage to get the training, to go through many more fucking unmasking ego deaths, telling people in Ireland, what will all my friends think? What will my family think of me? Will I be disowned when I start to speak out about my mental health, about, love and the universe and, living in alignment, getting into nature? It's daunting. It's lonely, it's scary, it creates a lot of fear. I had a Facebook page, I deleted all Instagram, Facebooks, all of that. Well, I had it was all private, but I didn't have a Facebook, a separate Facebook that only had the people that I was training with on it. I wouldn't even have Saoirse and my own friends on it. So each different stage, I needed to take off an extra mask. So I had to present myself, come out, if you will, like come out of the closet. These are all the skills that I now possess. This is what I'm learning. This is how the healing journey has impacted me. And this is what I wanted to do for you. If you're struggling, this is how I want what I've been through and what I've lived through and come out the other side of to help you to do the same for yourself. I started making video content on the Instagram page that I had 400 people, or people that knew me from my party days, from growing up. They knew how wild and raw and real and hectic and I was in parties and life and fucking work and all the rest of that. Yeah, they were the people that knew me the most, and that was the most daunting challenge that I had to self-move through. I was in my wife's house one day. I'd been doing all this work for nearly a year at this stage, and I was afraid to tell anybody about it, that anybody that really knew me. And eventually the penny dropped. Darragh, this is not about you. This is bigger than you. This is way bigger than you. This is about people that whatever you're going to say from here on out is going to help. So with that, I literally jumped up out of the house, fucking jumped in the car, got myself out to Dundee, walked out to the pier. In my head was racing. I'm going to say this, I'm going to say that. And I made my first ever video for everybody that knew me in Ireland, in Dublin, people that knew me around the world at this stage. Just from obviously living abroad in Australia and people I partied with along the way, and made a video. That was in 2018, I think, 2018, roughly. And here I am. I've done every course fucking known to man, all exponential learning, all basically in the fire, learning through doing, learning through action. Book smarts it's not what I value highest. I value how I feel while I'm going through learning the book smarts part along the way, while acting it out in real time. So in real life, doing real content, doing live videos on Instagram, on Facebook, doing video content, telling my story, which is very vulnerable. As I've explained, I feared losing my mother. I feared losing my family through sharing these vulnerable stories, because, they're not as open as I am, and people still judge, and it is what it is. What can I do? It's judgment is a part of life that doesn't need to be. But again, this is my life also. So yeah, I have skill. I've done my master coach training in 2020, not 2020, in 2022. I completely changed career in 2020, completely changed. I made the decision that this is it now. I've been creating enough content, I've been coaching enough people. I just hadn't been doing it as a business for a living. And I was doing loads of my videos. So I was looking at some huge projects in Sydney, and I was the foreman on those. They were worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and I was getting to see, grown men in wounded children's bodies using their egos to dominate and to give out and complain and to control each other and manipulate each other on site. Construction is very manipulative and it's very toxic. And I used to see it all play out in construction, and I used to try and help people, use that as my playground, use that as where I could help people. And then I was creating content along the way in my fucking high vis vest and hard hats and all the rest of it. And there was obviously each different level of my own personal growth took a new ego depth, and stepping up into, now I've got a family to feed, but I no longer have the security of a weekly paycheck that comes from a construction industry that I no longer want to be a part of. So with a daughter to feed and a soon-to-be son to feed, and a wife to look after who was just gone on maternity leave, the stakes are high. The stakes are high to be changing career and going all in on your dreams. So it was the most stretchy. I quit alcohol. I was doing a program at the time. It was 4 months long, and I quit myself a target that if I drank alcohol, I would shave my eyebrows. And it was coming up to my wedding, so there was absolutely no chance I was going to have a wedding with no eyebrows. So it was great. I ended up staying off alcohol for nearly that whole year. And since then, I've done my master coach certification. That was another 9 or 10 months of training with psychologists, with counsellors, with with high-level coaches, with, people from all walks of life in all fields who see the value of coaching and add it to their psychology, to their psychotherapist practices and some of the modalities, and use them, because they all get to be and they get to be used together. And now I'm doing a facilitation training with the Bridge Experience, which is a 12-month program, and it's in Austin, Texas. Got to fly over there 3 times to do in-person intensive and masterminds. I'll get to fly to Australia to be a part of that, and because the workshops are going to be there, I'm going to be facilitating that in Australia. I'll be there for a few weeks. So that's a 12-month program to upskill myself, to facilitate bigger groups, bigger rooms, rooms of 60, 70, 100 people, and basically bring people through the whole process that I've been through myself to rewire the nervous system, to get themselves, to have them get to know themselves beyond their triggers, beyond their traumas, and beyond what they believe their capabilities were. Because our capabilities are pre-wired in from our first 7 years of life, and the traumas stored in our system up until our adult life. When we rewire the nervous system and push ourselves beyond the limits we believed we had, we get to see what we're truly capable of. We get to see that there's another side of life. There's an other side of us. So this year I'm going through that training at the minute, even though I've got the master coach, and I believe all student first, master second. We will always be a student. I will be a student for as long as I live. I love to learn about different industries. I learned about property investment and whenever I go into a field, I need to know everything about that field. I don't care how I look. If I look stupid, if I ask a wrong question, a bad question, stupid question, no matter how many people are there. And this is all part of my healing. Before I would have feared being judged based on how I speak and how I show up, my linguistics. But now I don't give a shit, because I'm here to learn and serve. The more I learn, the more people I get to serve through their healing process and living the life on their terms. So I will always ask questions until I understand it in my dialogue, in the dialogue and the linguistics that I have grown up in the flats. Then I can share from that place. So cryptocurrency, I got into cryptocurrency, investing. I learned all about that along the way, investing in other stuff along the way. But again, I learned, now I'm here in Bali, construction a project that has 10 villas that I'm doing as a side business. Yeah, basically to set myself and my family up. We live in Bali. We moved to Bali as well. Sorry, I missed that part. We went back to Australia. We left Australia, went to Ireland for 3 months to allow our families to meet the kids who were born during, Fia was only 9 months the last time she was home, and Bodhi was born during the lockdown process where the borders were closed in Australia. So they hadn't met their families, and we went home, spent 3 months in Ireland, and then moved to a country that we didn't know anybody. Simple. A lot of people we didn't know, we didn't know anybody. A lot of people that you meet here, they don't speak English as a first language. It's very daunting. Again, the stakes were high. We got 2 kids, Bodhi at this stage, I believe it was just over 1. And Fia would have been 3 or 4. Obviously a wife who just left her corporate career. And then me, I worked online, and the stakes were high. We didn't speak the language, still local language. And I just put myself in the foreign line and our family in the foreign line, because I know deep down that if I work hard enough, do enough hours, and I stay in alignment with my goals and my commitments and my purpose in this world, and that's to serve as many people as humanly possible. My target is 100,000 Irish men and women by the year 2030, and that hasn't changed. To help them heal, see their own greatness, to set themselves up for success so they can pass it on to other people in their community, in their family, in their neighbourhood. So they're the lighthouse, and then the next person becomes the lighthouse. And then if you think of everybody in Ireland that now know how to manage triggers and traumas and be aware of it even, so we don't pass it on as much as we used to. That's my number one mission and purpose in life. And the skill sets and all the other stuff along the way are just an added bonus. I will always take a swing what I want to do in life because, again, I believe it will work out. With the properties, initially I was going to build a family home, but I was like, why would I do that if you can build more than one and then you can help offset whatever the costs are in building a family home and so on and so forth. My mind operates in numbers and healing, and my heart, well, let's say my mind operates in numbers and my heart operates in healing. So this is me. This is my journey so far. And in my opinion, if we were to go back a few years, the moment I read the book The Secret, I became successful. The moment I found the documentary, The Abundance Factor, I became successful. And the moment there's so many milestones in my life where I believe I became a massive success. And that was all before I had anything. That was, again, I didn't know or understand any of this at that time. But for me today now, properties and cars and bikes and clothes and watches and all the rest of it, I believe society has sold us a donkey and a carrot that many of us get stuck in, going around that hamster wheel, chasing that carrot, chasing that success, the material success that we run to the trap door, which is requirement, and having never truly lived or got to know ourselves along the way and doing things because that's the way they've always been done and passing them down our family tree because that's how we learned, and that's what we passed on. So yeah, all the other stuff is extra. This is me. This is what the podcast is about. I'm hoping to bring, I've already got so many incredible guests lined up. I've already got some podcasts recorded. Yeah, let's see where it grows. Let's see. Everybody deserves to be successful in their own right and live life on their own terms and according to their own time. Yes, construction serves a purpose. Yes, jobs serve a purpose. Everything serves a purpose as long as you are setting yourself up to live outside of the hours of what you do for someone else. That's my truth. Please like, subscribe, share, all the rest of it. Yeah, lots more is going to come up along the way in my conversations with the incredible guests that we have lined up. So this is it. Thanks for listening.